necessary investment to receive the other people when they come in. If we start to give licenses to people, so right now, one bank has advised, sir, that the bank, we are holding up over $200 million in investment. I spoke to the head of the bank on Monday, and that person advised me, look, when is this thing going to get finished? We have over $200 million in potential investment that we want to bring online, but we can't do it until you set a license with Light and Power. If we go further, sir, and we think about enfranchisement of Barbadians, we're looking at credit unions to get into the energy space. We're looking, sir, at the renewable energy space to be that lifeline for the Barbados Water Authority. That the Barbados Water Authority is guaranteed a 20% stake in the renewable energy market that allows it to pay for its development and fund itself to do its mains lane program, which is going to cost us over $2 billion, and other infrastructural development that we know is so necessary needs. The transport sector, the transport board is looking at the renewable energy sector as well as a lifeline to allow it inflows of income. So a lot is riding on this, and it has all been stalled because Light and Power has effectively said, I'm not portraying them in a bad light, and I say up front, I understand their position. As a business person, I understand their position. They have said, we are not doing anything further to increase any capacity, to enhance anything, to provide any other security until our license is settled. It puts us under pressure, us as a government under pressure, but it is perfectly understandable from the position of Light and Power. Well, I cannot see myself, sir, redeveloping or strengthening the grid and increasing capacity to take on other people if after I've done all of that, I cannot see return on my investment because I didn't get the license I expected, or I didn't get a license at all. So Light and Power's position makes sense. I don't want to point fingers, sir, over the last couple of years, but perhaps it is necessary to. I have the misfortune of being in this position now, scrambling and trying to get the necessary structures in place that we can proceed with our energy sector because of the lethargy of what happened before. We should not be in this position. Light and Power was making noises about renewing their license for about 7 or 8 years. About 7 or 8 years. And every year it gets worse. So Light and Power is not developing their grid infrastructure does not just affect us. But if the grid has a capacity now, let's throw a figure, sir. Let's say 150 megawatts. All right, let me not confuse people with those terms. Let's say 100 units of something. If the existing infrastructure in Barbados can only receive 100 units, then it makes no sense granting licenses to other people to generate electricity. Because what's going to happen? You generate it and you can't get it to where it needs to go. Because the grid just can't take it. So for us to develop and expand what it is we're doing and to reach our 2030 goal, it is necessary for the grid capacity to be increased. The grid needs to be strengthened and the grid capacity needs to be increased. So it would be, sorry, so I'm thinking very careful what I'm saying because of what is going on. It is envisioned that for the most part, Light and Power owns the grid. They're the ones in the best position to actually increase the capacity. They're the ones with the current infrastructure, which anybody who is wishing to feed into the grid is going to have to use anyway. So at some point in time, we need to settle with Light and Power, okay, what part do you play in the grid? How much of the grid is yours? What do we as a government expect from you? What commitments do we want from you to develop the grid to give us this capacity to be able to take on all the electric buses and all the electric cars and power all the sugar factories and power manufacturing in Barbados? What do you need from us to let you do that? That is where we are now with latent power on the transmission distribution. With the generation aspect, sir, because of our wish to liberalize and democratize energy production in Barbados, and because we wish to enfranchise people and give all of the players in Barbados a stake in it, then it is unlikely that there's going to be a future monopoly on generation, because we need to get other producers in, and competition is good. Competition is good. We know what the current cost of electricity is, but we don't know what the current cost of electricity could be if competition was in. If somebody else comes in with better equipment, better technology, better everything, then the cost of electricity is going to go down. And if the cost of electricity starts to come down, then it's going to have to be passed on to the consumer. Where are we here? Why is the cost of electricity where it is, sir? Almost the largest consumer of fuel in Barbados is, I believe, the latent power. The latent power burns a lot of money consuming fuel to generate electricity. It is the single largest drain. The purchase of fuel is the single largest drain on the foreign exchange reserves of Barbados. I believe out of every dollar of foreign reserves that is consumed, 60 cents is through purchasing fuel. It can't continue. We just don't have it. When is a cheaper way? Why are we still using massive gas turbines when we could be using renewable sources that replenish themselves and bring the cost down? So it is incumbent on us to provide that framework in the shortest possible time that allows the vision of this government and the vision of the Ministry of Energy and Water Resources to realize the situation of a clean Barbados. Sir, we have some students in the ministry, and they did a couple of videos that we're going to release while they were interns at the ministry. And they pitched it as clean versus dirty. And that's effectively what it is. It's clean versus dirty. But it's not just clean versus dirty, it's cheap versus expensive. The outlay on renewable energy might be significant upfront because you have to do significant capital expenditure and investment. But as the life of that equipment goes on, having put the money up front, the cost of the electricity comes down as the equipment is amortized. So it is not just idealistic. There is no other option for Barbados than to switch to the generation of energy solely by renewable sources. A number of people have heard about Barbados's oil exploration industry. People know that we produce oil in Barbados and have produced oil in Barbados for over 100 years. Everybody knows about the finds in Guyana, and we share a boundary with Guyana, close to where Guyana has had some discoveries of oil, right? Our boundary is close there, and we'll be doing seismic research to assess the capacity in our territorial waters to produce hydrocarbons, whether it be oil or whether it be natural gas. So we are fully out intending to explore this. I've been asked a number of questions, and every time I'm with Minister Humphrey, the Minister for Maritime Affairs and Blue Economy, anytime people see us together, they can't help themselves. They ask, but how are you the oil minister? And he's the Blue Economy minister, and you pushing oil exploration, and he's trying to keep the seas clean. But, sir, other countries have done it. Norway has done it. Norway has a clean country where the bulk of their energy is produced by renewable sources, but Norway exploits its oil and hydrocarbon reserves and then exports them for consumption, not in Norway. Norway then uses the money that is gained by the selling of those resources for internal development, for building hospitals, for improving the educational system. And that is the same position that we plan to do in Barbados. I have told my friends, sir, that have no fear. If we realize the potential that we hope to realize, then some of that same oil revenue will go to creating artificial reefs and redeveloping the oceans and creating protected spaces and allowing him to do all the things he wants to do. But the fact that we are exploring our options for hydrocarbons and looking to develop our offshore oil and gas industry does not take away from everything else that I said. We are blessed with a climate that is conducive to the production of renewable energy. So no matter how much oil we find, no matter how much gas we find, yes, we can exploit it, yes, we can use the money to develop our internal infrastructure and to help the less vulnerable, but it still should not take away from the position that we're moving towards, that domestically and internally our consumption must be clean. So, sir, let me go straight to the actual amendment, sir. There's a bit of history. We've had discussions, sir, with Light and Power, with the issue of separate licenses for generation, transmission, distribution, storage, and sales. And there's a general understanding, sir, that the ministry is going to control the issuing of those licenses. So the licensing regime is going to be, government is going to control the issues of licenses, sir. But in order to facilitate Light and Power now, we have to speed up the parts that relate to them or will relate to them on the conclusion of our license negotiation. So we're looking to amend Clause 2, sir. Clause 2 of the bill deals with definitions which have to be added to the Act. Dispatch, sir, in relation to electricity means the conduct of the activities involved in the central management and direction of generation systems and other sources of supply of electricity to the public grid in order to achieve optimal safety, reliability, and economic supply of electricity. We also deal with dispatch code, which means the rules to govern the dispatch of electricity. Distribution means the transport of electricity by means of a distribution system. Conversely, distribution system means a system which consists wholly or mainly of low voltage electric lines and is used primarily for conveying electricity from a substation to a customer. A storage system, these are new definitions that are going in, so I'm just going to outline them. A storage system means a system, mechanism, or device for the conversion of electricity into a form of energy which can be kept in reserve. The keeping of that energy and the subsequent reconversion of energy into electrical energy in a controllable manner. So this is the battery storage component that I refer to as another factor of the licenses. Store in relation to electricity means to operate a storage system. Systems operator means a person who holds a dispatch license. So as it stands now, Light and Power pretty much does all of this, even to the systems operator part. And Light and Power itself regulates and sets its rules for its own systems dispatch. Now, sir, why is this a necessary part? If we're democratizing the generation of electricity in Barbados, and sorry, let me start by saying I am not suggesting at all that this is the MO of Light and Power or this is in their contemplation. I'm saying that we cannot simply make laws for what exists, but we have to make legislative amendments to cover the things that might crop up. If you have a systems operator that is the major or the monopoly generator, so they control who uses what electricity. what electricity comes on to the grid. And you then start to allow other people to produce electricity. But you still have the same person deciding which electricity comes onto the grid. Well, they can choose to take all of their electricity in peak hours and use other people's electricity in off-peak hours, or not take the electricity if there's sufficient, or prioritize the use of their own. I think you get where I'm coming from, sir? So, as I said, I am not suggesting for a second that that is what it is, but light and power may not always be light and power as we know it. Companies change. Companies are bought out. Well, we have comfort in who we're dealing with, and we have dealt with them in good faith, and we believe that light and power has been dealing with us in good faith up to now. We do not know who will be the majority generator in the next 10 years. If somebody comes and offers light and power twice what it's worth, then they'd be foolish to not sell it. And while you know the devil you have, you don't necessarily know the devil that you can get. So it is necessary now to, and this, sir, is not in any way to suggest that there's anything devilish with light and power. Sir, so the introduction now of a systems operator is a foreign concept for us, because if light and power held the monopoly for generation and distribution, there was nothing really to operate. There are no decisions to make. All the power coming in is ours. All the power going out is ours, so we just use our power. But where you're trying to open up the grid and encourage people coming in, then you need to have a strong systems operating regime that other producers can look at it and say, I am comfortable that when I generate electricity, my electricity will compete fairly with the existing utility. Though it was there before me, the fact is I now have a license, we all competing equally on the same footing, and that there's going to be an independent person or a separated section of the business that deals solely with that, so that you can guarantee fairness. People are not going to come in, sir, unless these certain assurances are going to be made that allow them the comfort of knowing that they're going to get a return on their investment and not be victimized. Transmission, sir, means the transport of electricity by means of a transmission system. And a transmission system means a system for conveying electricity from a generating station to a substation or another generating station, or to or from an interconnector or to a consumer, but does not include an electric line as part of the distribution system. I just read it. Probably doesn't mean anything to anybody else, but sir, it is there. Sir, clause 3, we also have to amend. Clause 3 amends section 3 of the Act to make it clear, because it's not clear now. As we said, light and power's arrangement with the successive governments of Barbados has existed for a very long time. Sir, to be honest, we actually can't find, or I have never seen an original license. You know, when something exists and has become legitimate by a course of dealing, but you can't find the original document that says these are what it is, that's the situation we're in at present now. We know how light and power operates, we know its arrangements with government, but as to finding an original license, sir, I have never seen one. I don't know if anybody else has seen one. I asked in the ministry for one, and we haven't seen one. So, clause 3 of the Act amends section 3 to make it clear that no person can generate, transmit and distribute, store, sell or dispatch electricity except with a license issued under the Act. And section 3.2, sir, makes an exception for those persons who generate and supply electricity to the public grid where the cumulative installed capacity of the generation systems does not exceed, in the case of domestic usage, 5 kilowatts, or in any other type of usage, 25 kilowatts. So, for small systems, if you're doing just your own small domestic system, you're not necessarily caught by this. But if I put a domestic system on my house, and I put a domestic system on the house of the member for St. Philip South, and a domestic system on the house for the member for Christchurch West Central, Christchurch East Central, on my constituent, that's right. The fact is, it starts to add up. And I will tell you this, sir. We took a decision a couple months ago to fix for a period of 20 years all of the license at 41 cents, all the licenses that were granted up to a particular time, because we had a number of people who were interested in, like smaller producers who were interested in coming into the space, but they couldn't get the financial backing because there was no fixed rate of return that they could take to the bank. It wasn't bankable. The bank wanted some certainty. So together with my friend, sir, the member for St. George South, we created a situation. Well, sir, although I see him on the other side, sir, I know he is there in good spirit and trying to bring the lost sheep back home. The story, sir, of the prodigal son doesn't just exist in the Bible, sir, but I assure you it exists in this parliament. But yes, sir, so we created a situation where there was a guarantee on the cost of the electricity and return on investment for 20 years. Sir, we were flooded. We made that announcement, let's say Wednesday. By Friday, sir, we were flooded with more applications than we can handle. And it proved something. It proved that the development of our renewable energy sector was being held up because of uncertainty. We gave one small piece of certainty, and the amount of applications that came in, sir, were overwhelming. But an independent power producer asked me a question. He said, why do you not just fix that rate of return, that rate, for all licenses up to a certain time? And I had to explain to him, but that rate is a gift. It was designed to stimulate action in the marketplace, to get some capacity on the grid as quickly as possible. But that price is not a price. We have to cap the capacity for that price. Because if we kept that same price, sir, and opened the doors, it would be too expensive. That was just meant to get some capacity installed. And he said to me, but there's nothing, so he wanted to install 10 megawatts. 10 megawatts is a massive system. It's a big system, sir. He said, but how would you look on it if I did 20 applications for 500 kilowatts? So if I did 20 little installations and tie them together. So that is why we have to make the distinction, sir, between cumulative systems and independent systems. If a small person wants to put solar panels on their house and they're doing it self-contained, then that's of no interest to us. If you're not affecting the grid, that's of no interest to us. But the other thing that you have to be aware of is from the time you start to get into big installations, the grid or the utility is now dependent on those. So if I have a small system, sir, attached to my house of 500 kilowatts, that's a small system. There are a number of people with those. I may feed back into the grid, I may get some money from it, but light and power is not depending on my system. So if my system goes down as a blip, it probably would not even register. They would just know they don't have to pay me. But it doesn't actually affect the distribution of electricity to somebody else. But where you have 10 megawatts installed, then we need to license you and control you and regulate you, and you need to follow the terms of your agreement, because if you have 10 megawatts installed, you've used up a portion of the grid that other people can't use. So you now need to deliver that 10 megawatts, because if your 10 megawatts goes down, it then causes significant issues with load for other people. So it's a matter of being able, the licensing regime is as stringent as it is, and it's going to require certain checks and balances because it is necessary. You're now saying to Light and Power, you don't control all the generation. You generate, other people generate. You have to take the electricity and then farm it back out. So we have to put the utility in a position where the utility can still, with the other power producers, guarantee a steady supply of electricity to Barbados. So that's why that amendment is in there, sir. Sir, the same clause 3 amendment creates a further exemption in the case of requirement for storage license to provided that it's not applicable to person who supplies electricity to the public grid but does not require license in the circumstances that were earlier discussed. And subsection 4 exempts a person from obtaining a dispatch license where that person generates and sells electricity to the public grid. As it presently stands, a dispatch license is only now required by the utility company. So we're clearing up some anomalies, sir. Clause 4 of the bill amends section 5 of the Act by providing in subsection 1 that a person may apply for such license as he may require instead of applying for a license to supply electricity as is now the case. This amendment is necessary to broaden the scope of applications for the different types of licenses that are now available under the amended Act. So as it stands now, there's one type of electricity license. Because we are segregating and bringing it down, sir, to generation, transmission, distribution, sales, storage, if I only want to do storage, so I wish to set up a business, buy as many batteries, having a massive battery installation, that I may then guarantee to light and power. So I am not supplying through that. I am simply storing for them. It allows me then to create a new business opportunity. I may not want to be involved in any transmission, distribution, anything else. I simply may wish to use my 2 acres to set up a storage farm that then facilitates some other power producer. So rather than applying for a full electricity license, a license to supply electricity, I can simply apply for a storage license. So it recognizes the different categories of license that we are now breaking it down into, because it is no longer simply a license to produce or to supply electricity. We've gone way past that. We were past that a while ago, and we're only now doing the amendment for it. Clause Clause 5 amends section 6(1) of the Act to authorize the minister to grant by license the non-exclusive right to A, generate, B, store, C, transmit and distribute, D, dispatch, and E, offer for sale electricity for any purpose within any area for such period as the minister considers appropriate in the circumstances. So this, sir, is that separation of the licenses into the component parts. So if you wish to do everything, you apply for all. If you just wish to participate in one aspect of it, you apply for the license that is appropriate to you. But as it stands now, every license is pro forma effectively. Everybody applies for the same license. So we're just making the legislation now fit the current realities. So Clause 6 amends section 7(1)(a) of the Act by including that the minister may provide in the license the limits within which and the conditions under which electricity may be generated, stored, transmitted, distributed, or otherwise supplied or dispatched. And this broadens the categories of license for which the minister may impose terms and conditions. Why is this necessary? Because we've already indicated, sir, that there's going to be a carve-out for the Water Authority of 20% of the renewable energy market. I think there's going to be a carve-out for Transport Board as well. So the minister needs to have the ability to cap or curtail certain activities to provide for those carve-outs. So Clause 7 of the bill amends section 29 of the Act by deleting the word annual in relation to the fees that are paid to the Accountant General. Presently, the regulations, which also have to be amended, taking into account a different class of license, provides that payment of application, license, renewal, and annual fees, all of which must be paid to the Accountant General. This amendment merely seeks to remove the limitation of payment of fees annually only to the Accountant General. Clause 8, sir, amends section 31 of the Act by requiring the issuing of a dispatch code by the systems operator of the public utility, and this code must be approved by the Commissioner and the Chief Electoral Officer. Section 35 of the bill, sir, is transitional. It's a transitional provision that saves or grandfathers the existing licenses or the IPPs, independent power producers, so that they will not be rendered invalid by the amendment to this Act, So it says, notwithstanding section 3, a person other than the public utility who obtained a license before the commencement of the Electric Light and Power Amendment Act 2019 shall not be held to be in breach of that section and shall be treated for the purpose of this Act as if he had obtained the required license under that section. So in the case of the public utility, section 35 has the same, 35(3) has the same effect as the proposed section 33A. by grandfathering existing franchise granted to the BLMP, saving the terms and conditions issued earlier, and treating the BLMP as if it was a licensee under the Act. So, in a nutshell, there's no mystery in the proposed amendments to the legislation. As I had indicated earlier, all we are seeking to do is amend the legislation and make consequential amendments to the regulation to allow us, on the completion of our current negotiations with the latent power, to be in a position to grant them the license. Sorry, sir, there's one other thing that I don't see in my brief, but it's almost skipped me. As it stands now, where anyone wishes to apply for license, there is a 3-month period of advertising that has to be observed. So when you apply for the license can't be granted until a period of 3 months from the time the advertisement first appears in the daily newspaper. Sir, that's impractical. I mean, we are negotiating very solid and firm terms. From the time we finish the negotiations with Light and Power, the government will know as a matter of certainty the license that it wants to go into, and Light and Power will know as a matter of certainty the license that the government is offering and what their terms and conditions are. So it is only upon a serious objection to any of the terms in the license that what we have negotiated will actually be affected. So there's no need, sir, for a 3-month period once adequate provision is made that anyone having a substantial objection has the ability to make that objection. From the time, sir, we conclude and Light and Power advertises, the terms of the proposed license will be made available in total. It will be made available through the Gazette, it will be made available electronically, it will be made available widely. The ministry will have copies, printed copies available that anybody could come and get a copy of the license. And you would then have 28 days to raise your objection or make your issues known. Sir, as we all know, in this day and age, 28 days is well substantial time. And don't believe for a second that anybody who is looking on, intended to come into this market space, is not paying attention to what is currently going on. They know what they want to see in the license to the utility, especially in the transmission and generation aspect, insofar as how it affects them. They know what they want to see in relation to the generation license, whether or not there is a continuing monopoly, which then affects them. So once the license is put out there for public consultation, they will simply check their concerns and make sure they're covered. So it's not going to be a case of somebody picking up the document, starting from scratch, reading through, and then trying to formulate their plan. If you are that independent power producer who is waiting now to formulate your plan as to how you come into Barbados, then you're not a person that we want. Right? We want people who are serious about doing business in Barbados, who have all their ducks in a row, and we want some of that 200 million in that one bank, sir, that the people are just waiting for the issuance of the license. So when we initially did the amendment, the draft of the amendment, the initial amendment was simply to change the time frame from 3 months to 28 days. And we thought ourselves, that might solve that problem. But while we're waiting on the legislation, there are a couple other things that we can fix that allows us to further advance our steps rather than just abridging the time. We want to be able to abridge the time and actually make the suitable license. And that amendment alone did not allow for that. So that is why we made the other consequential amendments that put us in a position to do what it is we have to do. So I hope, sir, that I have not confused everybody entirely. So if there are takeaway points from what I've put in front of us, our government is committed, is 100% committed, sir, to fossil fuel-free Barbados by 2030. If that is not realized, sir, then the least we're going to expect is a carbon-neutral Barbados by 2030. There are hundreds of millions of dollars in potential investment awaiting the granting and the settlement of a license with Latent Power. We know we meet with potential investors every single week, and the stick-up has been the uncertainty in the regime going forward that will cover Latent Power. The outside investors want to know that when the grid is democratized, when the supply of electricity in Barbados is democratized, that they can enjoy an equal footing in the marketplace with the utility. Barbados Water Authority and the Transport Board need to be assured that their carve-out is going to be intact and that the Minister has the capacity to actually secure that carve-out for them. Otherwise, the Transport Board, the Barbados Water Authority, will not be able to survive off of government's purse. We want, sir, to bring down the wastage, I would say wastage, of foreign exchange and the expense of the foreign exchange occasioned by the energy market and the burning of fuel oil. We also want Latent Power to know we feel their pain and know that we realize that for them to make the investment, because they have their shareholders to answer to, for them to make the investment, we realize that they need certainty and need to know what their future is looking like so they know what investment to be made. Sir, we also needed to abridge the time. And for all those reasons, and because of the immediacy of the situation, albeit that we are entirely redrafting the Electric Light and Power Act and creating a new act, that is the ideal, and when that is finished, it will probably be the most comprehensive and progressive piece of legislation in Barbados, because we are doing wide consultation on it. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can look at other countries, other regulatory systems, so that I am comfortable that when we are finished, we're going to have a state-of-the-art piece of legislation. But the Light and Power cannot wait until then for certainty on its license. And the other independent power producers